name is Chris Collier. I'm the executive director of Renew Theaters, which manages 4 theaters in the Pennsylvania, New Jersey area: the Ambler Theater in Ambler, the County Theater in Doylestown, the Highway Theater in Jenkintown, and the Princeton Garden Theater in Princeton, New Jersey. This program, Deep Focus, is supported by the Vesta Fund, which initially started our Film 101 discussion program, but then over the pandemic, when we shifted to virtually, provided us with the funding to expand this program to bring more films to discussion, more speakers together, and to connect us all virtually to talk about films. And one of the exciting things about the program is it's not just our 4 theaters, but we've also invited the Majestic Theater in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on as an inaugural theater partner. So welcome to everyone from wherever you are. If you're members of our theater, thank you so much for your support. And if you're a member of the Majestic, thank you so much for supporting their organization as well. This is actually the last of the discussions in our fall series. It sort of flows over into 2022. This is the 4th of 4 films in Zardosh's Middle Eastern Cinema discussion group. If you did not get a chance to see our other incredible discussions of A Separation, Women Without Men, and Osama, the recordings of those conversations are on our Eventive page, and you can get those where you signed up for this. And I recommend that you do if you did not, because those are incredible films, and all of the conversations have sort of been flowing together and interconnected. So really recommend checking those out. We are working on a new season of discussions, which we hope to announce soon. There are 2 sort of standalone events that I wanted to highlight for everyone coming up. On January 18th, Turner Classic Movies' Hannah Jack will be discussing Singin' in the Rain. So that's a wonderful classic, which hopefully you'll be able to join us for. And then Professor Alan Amitz will be discussing The Earrings of Madame De on February 1st, which is also an incredible film. We have a lot more to announce. We'll be focusing on some French New Wave titles later in the spring. So there's some really exciting things forthcoming. So please keep an eye on our website to look for that. Just really quickly, our Zoom protocols for this. Zardosht will be kicking off with a little overview of the film and some background information. Please remain on mute during that period, and then we'll open it up to discussion. We've found that it's easiest to just use the raised hand feature so that we're not talking over each other, and I'm happy to call and help moderate the discussion. However, since we are a fairly small group here, I think we could also quickly dispense with that and pretty much open into just roundtable conversation as well. So we can play that one by ear. We'll start with the raise hand, but I think we can quickly just jump into chatting. The chat feature is enabled. So if there are things that you wanted to put in the chat, we can have a sidebar conversation as well, and I'll be monitoring that and can pull anything in that seems interesting or want to pull up. I know sometimes people do a lot of IMDb digging and some other fact finding as the conversations are going, and that's a good place for that. So lastly, it is now my privilege to turn things over to Zardosht Afshari, who is an Iranian filmmaker whose short films have been screened in some international film festivals in countries like the US, Iran, Poland, Croatia, India, and Italy. He received his MA in dramatic literature from the University of Tehran and moved to the United States in 2019. He is currently in the MFA program at Film and Media Arts at Temple University, and we are so happy to have him leading us through this discussion. Zardosht, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. First of all, do you hear me? Okay, first of all, I want to say Happy New Year to all of you. And I really want to, this year will be a very healthy and good year for all of us, especially around the world. Also, I'm really happy that I have all of you here. And also my friend June Wang is a Chinese director that joined us tonight. She is a great documentarian. Her documentary 2 hours or 3 hours documentary has been New York Film Festival, Rotterdam Film Festival. And so tonight also I'm happy that we can wrap up this series with a film by Abbas Kiarostami, that he's one of my favorite filmmaker. Tonight, first I try to go through some, like maybe some other discussion about the geography and maybe cultural background of the film, and Kiarostami's point of view, maybe approach the, this cultural diversity in Iran, and a very short introduction about Kiarostami. So let me share my screen and do you see my presentation? Okay. So the film that we will talk about tonight, this Taste of Cherry, is the only Iranian film that won Golden Palm of Cannes Film Festival during all these years, and is made by Abbas Kiarostami in 1997. Is a part of, or maybe the fourth and last part of, Middle Eastern cinema discussion that we had during these 4 months. Before talking about the film, I want to bring a quote from Michael Langford about cultural diversity in Iran. And what we have seen most of the time in, maybe media is that maybe Western news media has a rather maybe homogeneous view about the Iran, but Iran is a multi-ethnic and maybe linguistic country with diverse culture. And I just brought some maybe people from different ethno-linguistic group here. Persians, for example, I'm Persian, but we have Azeris, Arabs, Kurds, Baluchis, Gilakis, Armenians that they are Christians, Jews, Assyrian that they are Christian, and Afghan migrants in Iran. So now I want to go through the map of Iran and show you in which part of Iran we have, because in our film, in Taste of Cherry, Abbas Kiarostami refers to these people. So for example, in west of Iran, we have Azeris people, they speak Turki or Azeri. And also in the western part of Iran here, that I show with my cursor, near Iraq, we have Kurd people that they are not Shia, because that the official religion in Iran is Shia or part of Islam, but the people live here are Sunnis and Kurd also. And some people here, the minority, we have the Arab minority in western part of Iran and also in the south of Iran. They speak Arabic and also Farsi or Persian. And they live in the eastern part of Iran, the border with Afghanistan and Pakistan. And also we have Turkmen people that they speak Turkey and they live near Turkmenistan. And we have Jews or Armenians mostly live in Tehran and Isfahan. They are Christian people. And also we have Gilaki people in the north of Iran near Caspian Sea. So I brought all of this maybe cultural maybe groups or people with different language, because in our film, the characters have been chosen by Abbas Kiarostami from these kinds of, cultures. So the location of the film is in Tehran. Tehran is the capital of Iran and is the most populous city in Iran. And around 12 million, or some people says 15 million people live in this city. And there is a small picture of Iran, because in this city that I used to live, you can see all these people around Iran and with different languages and different cultures. So when we see the film and we see in Tehran, we have all these cultures. is not very, unusual. This is something common. And in Tehran, if you just walk and talk with people, you see that some people talk with Kurdish accent, Persian Kurdish accent, or Persian Azerbaijani accent. Because I was 90% sure you are not Persian native speakers, you can't recognize the difference between these accents. So I brought this ideas to this kind of point of view to analyze this film and lead this discussion. So the film that we have tonight is Taste of, and this is the film that's written and directed by Abbas Kiarostami. I can say the most acclaimed Iranian filmmaker. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2016. And just here, I brought a selection of his films because, for example, these three films, there is The Friend's House, Life and Nothing More, and Through the Olive Trees, that most of the critics call them Koker trilogy. Koker is a northern village in north of Iran. And because the location of those films have been Koker, they call it Koker trilogy. But Abbas Kiarostami liked to have this trilogy, Life, and to have these three films in a to call these three films in a trilogy: Life and Nothing More, Through the Olive Trees, and Taste of Cherry, because he believed that these three films, the theme of these three films, about the life and death. So he believed that these films should be in a trilogy, not those films. But maybe if you want to watch Abbas Kiarostami's works, sometimes maybe you hear this Koker trilogy. And also, the Wind Will Carry Us is about the theme of this film also is about the death and life. Kiarostami also made some films outside of Iran. Certified Copy in 2020 is made in Italy, and Like Someone in Love, that was made in Japan. But Taste of Cherry was the only film by him that won the Golden Palm and Golden Palm of Cannes Film Festival. The other films also won some different actually awards from different film festivals. Something interesting about Abbas Kiarostami is that he wasn't just a filmmaker, he was an artist. For example, we have another Iranian director, Asghar Farhadi, but I can't, call him a poet. But Abbas Kiarostami also was a poet, a screenwriter, painter, graphic designer, and photographer. And some of his photography collections are very famous. And also his last film, 24 Frames, also is based on his collection of his photography, his photos actually. So the filmmaking style of Abbas Kiarostami is using non-actor and child protagonists in his films. For example, in this film, all the characters have been non-actors, all of them. Especially, it's very strange, very interesting how he found the main character, Mr. Baddie. He found him in a street and just asked him to join him and to have a role in this film. The documentary style of his films and also being narrative most of the time have been praised and acclaimed by the critics. I'm not sure you have watched Close Up, is another film by Abbas Kiarostami. In Close Up, you can't, sometimes in some scenes, or maybe most of the scene, you don't know is documentary or the narrative film. And it's very simple film, but very hard to understand that or to, recognize, okay, this narrative or this scene is, documentary. Also in this film, Abbas Kiarostami says, most of the time I have screenwriting for my films, but I'm not dedicated or I'm not just, do that. I want to be free at the set and I do what I want to do, but I try to be, I want to shoot based on the screenwriting that I have. So is one of the maybe filmmaking style of him. And also another filmmaking style of him is using car in some of his films because it has two reasons. He believed that car is an individual location, and also it has another reason because after revolution, especially women character on the film should have hijab or wear on their, they couldn't be nude or they couldn't be without hijab or a scarf on their head. So it was unrealistic to show a woman inside home when she has a scarf. So he used to, shot these scenes outside in a society that is realistic, because Iranian women should have hijab because of the governmental rule in Iran. So it's realistic. So he chose car as a location. And also he used to shoot his films on the real locations. As you see in this film, car is a maybe main location of the film, and also some parts of Tehran without any maybe set design or something. One of the approach that I have for analyzing of this film, it actually comes from this point of view, the politic of location. Iranian film scholar refers to some Iranian films and says that some Iranian filmmakers try to maybe refer to some locations in Iran, for example, in Kurdistan or Baluchistan, or maybe the part of Iran that Arab people lives there. And also sometimes they refer to some languages in Iran, some different, just Persian languages, for example, Azerbaijan languages, that is completely different with Persian, to narrate some political and maybe social issues on those locations or on those places. In this film, we have a young soldier from Kurdistan, who is not Shia and who is from poor part of Iran, and it shows that how government has not been successful to bring facilities to those parts of Iran that Sunni people live, that they're not Shia. This is very maybe kind of reference to some political, maybe sometimes social issues. And also the concern that some Iranian filmmakers have about the cultural identity and diversity in Iran. This, I'm sure that Abbas Kiarostami has not chosen this character by accident. And as you see, because I want to go through the characters of this film to show how each one represents a part of Iran. The main character, Mr. Baddie, the actor for this is Humayun Ershadi. It's very interesting to know that Humayun Ershadi before this film was an architect and he was an actor. And after this film, he became actually a professional actor. And maybe you have seen him in some films, because I have seen him some films that was made in, not Iran and outside of Iran. He's a middle class and middle-aged man from Tehran. Based on his accent, based on the part of Iran he lives, is a Iranian dominant Tehrani man in the north of Tehran, and it's based on his car, based on the shows he belongs to a maybe middle class Iranian maybe community. There are so many questions about this character. Is he married? Does he have any physical or mental problem? Is he religious? And other questions. But Kiarostami doesn't. I think we can talk about that, but I think Kiarostami doesn't answer these questions. But just he shows maybe a picture of a middle-aged man from Tehran. And we can discuss about this, because when you hear the conversation or dialogues between them, based on their accent and because based on the references that he refers, we know the differences between characters. For example, this character, the first passenger, is a non-actor and also a young soldier from Kurdistan. As you have seen the film, Mr. Baddie, the main character, calls him the Kurd people are brave. This is the actually way that Iranian looks at Kurd people, the people that they are poor, but they are brave and they live in mountain area in the border, in the western border of Iran. His family are poor and they are farmers. There are some ideas about that government, because it's a Shia government, has a kind of discrimination against the people who are Sunnis, the Kurd people that are Sunnis. And because of the censorship, Kiarostami can't just, show or maybe say this dialogue very, very maybe direct, but in maybe deeper layer by choosing this character from that area and maybe just some referring to some points he wants to show this issue. And also he doesn't mention in the film, but he is supposed to be from a religious Sunni family, not Shia. So we have 2 points of view. First is, okay, this is the Mr. Baddie supposed to be Shia and this soldier supposed to be Sunni, but in both the religion that both actually comes from Islam, things that are committing suicide is not acceptable. So he doesn't want to help Mr. Baddie. I have a very, very interesting story how Kiarostami did the staging and blocking this character, and after the finishing, if we have time, I can tell that story. Is very strange and very actually interesting. And the second passenger is an Afghan seminarian who is a migrant in Iran. When we had the discussion about Osama, I said how Afghan and war in Afghanistan actually caused so many migration from Afghanistan to Iran. And I think around 2 million Afghan migrants now live in Iran. And this character and also the guard that who was friend of this character, both were from Afghanistan. And this character religious and studies Shia religion in Iran as a seminarian. And in some of his dialogue or some of his lines, he refers to Quran and Hadith, means, the written maybe narrative from Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, Muslim prophet. So also some workers that we saw in the film that Mr. Baddie was from Afghanistan, and it shows how this poor workers migrated from Afghanistan and came to the maybe wealthy part of rich part or wealthy part of Tehran, the north of Tehran, that Mr. Baddie lives there, and just they do very hard work with maybe very low wages in those areas. And the third passenger is Mr. Bagheri, I think. If you are Iranian, you can understand that his accent is from Azerbaijan, the north part of Iran. In Iran, unfortunately, there is a way that some people, because we have Azerbaijan and Turkey, some people don't think that the Azerbaijani people are wise, and it's very, but here we see that one of the wisest character in the film is this man from Azerbaijan. And he has a very, direct Turkey or Azerbaijani accent. When he speaks Farsi, we can understand that he is from Azerbaijan. So I really believe that Kiarostami has chosen this character very wisely, and each character in this film is representative of part of Iran and Iranian society, and refers to some social and maybe religious backgrounds. I brought this because I was sure that maybe you can't catch this because they speak with different maybe accents and languages. And about the ending of the film, because it was some actually points and some thoughts about the ending of the film. Because when Kiarostami made this film, the Iranian government didn't allow him to send the film to Cannes Festival because the film was about committing suicide. And some critics believe that this ending just was kind of compromise to show that, okay, Mr. Baddie hasn't committed suicide. But some people believe no, this ending is part of the film and is part of Kiarostami's aesthetic for this film, because you know that the way of shooting of the film and also the music, the way of the shooting of the film and also bringing music to the film is completely a little or maybe completely different with the most part of the film. But I have brought part of the Kiarostami's interview with IndieWire, which says, when I have people arguing about the ending of the film, I like it because it means the movie hasn't ended. I don't care if it meets some people's expectation or goes against those expectations, but the fact that the film has a life in their minds and they keep thinking about it. This is something that I like. So I wanted to bring also this issue about the ending of the film, because I have read both, thoughts about the ending of the film. And about the form of the film, because also Kiarostami's form is very famous for Iranian critics and also for maybe Western critics. As most of his films, the structure of the script is not linear and it's kind of non-linear. So we don't have a climax, maybe the act one climax of act one or second. Is a kind of minimalist film. For example, if you watch this film and compare it with Asghar Farhadi's film, A Separation, you can see that there is a big difference of the way of screenwriting for these two films. And also the static camera and documentary style. The way that Kiarostami shot this film is he picked up each character. He played the role of Mr. Baddie and just mounted a camera in front of the character and just try to be very, try to let the character to be himself. Just started with some questions, with some ideas that he had on his script, and just let the character to be himself. For example, for the soldier character, there is a scene that he flees and he refuses to help Mr. Baddie. Kiarostami says, I asked him to open the dashboard of the car and give me a piece of chocolate. And in the dashboard, there was a pomegranate juice and a knife. And he thought that I have killed someone and just hit feet. And this is that you see in the film, that it's real, all of the parts of soldier is real, actually reflection, or maybe he wasn't playing a role, he was actually himself in the film. This is the way that Kiarostami used to play with his actors in most of his films, and it's very strange. Also, you see that no music in the film. It's like a completely realistic or documentary style, the way that in most of his film we can see. I want you actually to pay attention to some of formal choice that he had, because he hasn't used music in his film. His sound design is brilliant. Just if you had chance to watch the film again, just listen to the ambience and background sound, and you see that Kiarostami in this film and all of his films, how he was actually sound design was so important for him. As I said before, pay attention to car as a individual location. If you have seen 10 is another film by Kiarostami, all the film also is in the car. It's shot in the car. And 2 shots were single shots. As a way that I said, Kiarostami shot the film. He was the driver and just put the camera or mount the camera and just let the character to talk, and just he asked some questions. So you see that in the film, most of the shots are single shot because they have been shot in different time and maybe different places. In the first time, Kiarostami has been Mr. Baddie, and just he shot the 3 characters, and after that, Mr. Baddie and the camera was in front of him, and he said his line. And also the using of DV cam for the ending title is very, as I said, is one of the formal choices that he had for this film. Actually, it's so hard to talk about this film and Kiarostami just in 20 minutes, but I tried to wrap it up in 20 or 25 minutes. But the question, maybe the last question of this presentation is actually a question that I have most of the time when I watch this film. Does the film praise death or life? And we can talk about that as a theme of the film. Thank you very much for your time. And so I can stop sharing. Yeah, it was around, I think, 25 or 20 minutes presentation. And I tried to wrap all of the issues around this film. It's so hard, so please forgive me if I forget something.
Well, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed the back-to-back pairing of Osama and this, just for those stylistic. So Osama starts with a handheld camera and then becomes cinematic, and this one is very cinematic and then ends with the handheld camera. So it was a very nice symmetry between those. Obviously very, very different feeling, of course, but I just wanted to say that I really appreciated that at least pairing of those back to back.
Yeah, actually, the Afghan filmmaker, most of the Afghan filmmaker have been, influenced by Iranian cinema, and some of them actually was born, raised in Iran, and back to Afghanistan and made their films. So yeah, we can see this influence on them. And also another great filmmaker, maybe you have seen some of his film, Nuri Bilge Ceylan or Nuri Bilge Ceylan, Turkish filmmaker who has won the Cannes Film Festival d'Or, and is a great filmmaker. I love his films. Also, he said that I was influenced by Abbas Kiarostami, and yeah. So we have in the chat box, and it says, Anna Silver says, so helpful to hear about the different languages and accent, which we weren't able to see. Yeah, it's something that, yeah, it's so hard for maybe non-native speakers to realize the different, languages or different accents of the characters. And also all of them refers to different parts of Iran and shows how different characters, live in Tehran, because Tehran is maybe a small picture of Iran. William, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Zardosht. I guess I don't know if I have a question so much as some kind of thoughts things that intrigued me with reference to your last question about the film praising life. One of the probably the most moving part of the film is, the kind of monologue from the last passenger, the Azerbaijani man, who is trying to convince him all these reasons, why he should live, including the line that gives the title to the film. Would you really want to give up a taste of cherry? And what struck me is that, he tells his own story about going to kill himself, and he climbs up in the mulberry tree, and he had this transformational experience. He talks about the sunrise. What strikes me is that it's that so much of that is articulated in terms of like the beauty of the natural world, and it felt to me that that was in a way in tension with the type of landscape where this is unfolding just kind of outside of the city. It's this very kind of brown, not very verdant. They're talking about how dusty it is a lot of the time. It's when he talks to different characters that work in this landscape, they're kind of complaining about how it's a desert and there's nothing to look at. And there's also a lot of industrial activity that we see in this kind of landscape. So I was just sort of intrigued by a different film during the, we might have cut to beautiful images of sunrises, or we might have seen a mulberry tree or a very green landscape, and maybe he would have seen a beautiful sunset that would have made him realize he wants to live. But what's intrigued me so much is that we get this very moving monologue about the beauty of the natural world, but we don't, I mean, I guess it's a question of taste, but we don't so much see it. We seem to be stuck in this kind of dusty, dried out, industrial-ish landscape.
Yeah, actually, you're right. I can refer to the, kind of as a filmmaker in Iran and also in Tehran, because, unfortunately, I live in Tehran, but one of the, most polluted city in maybe Iran is Tehran, because of the, as you said, industrial activities around Tehran. And for me, if I want to answer this question, Mr. Baddie, because also the car belongs to Abbas Kiarostami. It was his cars actually. And Mr. Baddie is Abbas Kiarostami, intellectual, lives in Tehran, in that situation, in Tehran, condition in Tehran. And he thinks about death and life in that city, and that, and also he's under pressure of, because of his work as a cultural work or something. As I said, they didn't let him first to send his film to Cannes Film Festival. So is a way that, but the end of the film, Kiarostami doesn't show us that Mr. Baddie, which I think took some pills to just go and just stay in his grave. He decided to be there or not. So he doesn't answer. He doesn't give us any answer. If he had answer, maybe, but now I don't have any answer. Mr. Baddie was dead there, and Mr. Bagheri kept his promise and just buried him or not. But also Mr. Bagheri, the Azerbaijani character that you said, has a very strange job. He is a taxidermist. He works in a place that they taxidermy the birds, the dead birds. And also it was very, kind of tricky choice that Abbas Kiarostami had about this character. But the thing in the film is that there is no answer, just, share the idea with us, share some thoughts with us, and this is us that we should decide.
I'll raise my own hand and call on
Okay.
myself. Just what you mentioned about the third passenger as a taxidermist, the thing that I found really interesting was obviously there were a number of different people that he looked to bring in the car, but the three passengers all had a connection to death or spiritualism in a way. So you have a soldier, and the contemplation of death there, a seminarian, and the religious aspect, and then the taxidermist. And I didn't catch on that until you finally find out what his role is, but sort of how each one of them is unique in sort of speaking about that life and death aspect. And it's not just someone off the street, but someone very, I'd say, specifically versed in having those conversations. But it actually took someone who was more down to earth and folksy to just tell a story instead of someone from the seminary to try and persuade him or something along those lines. The other thing that I just wanted to note, and I don't know how many people saw this on the Criterion channel or where people got a chance to, but there's a wonderful little breakdown of the film by Kristen Thompson, analyzing the film in terms of its landscape and tying it into another short film of Kiarostami's that I found absolutely fascinating. And the one thing that she highlighted was that the third passenger asked him to take the scenic route, and before that he's taking the same roads and the same roads and the same roads, and that the conversation starts to shift when he changes direction and starts driving in a different location. And I love the beauty in that, the simplicity of that as a visual metaphor, tying into the his style of trying to convince him to live his life.
Thank you for bringing this issue, Chris. Also, I had seen that maybe comparing two films, and also I want to say something else. It's very interesting that the third character, Mr. Bagheri, based on his, he's not a very person that you think he's wise. Maybe the wisest line, the wisest dialogue comes from him. And when he says something, Mr. Baddie thinks that he's wiser than Mr. Bagheri. As I said, he thinks that he belongs to a middle class Tehrani man. And the guy, Mr. Bagheri, the third passenger, he's from maybe provincial, area around Tehran, or maybe not from the capital of Iran. But the dialogues that he says, as you said, he says, okay, you can change the road and you can go from this way, is wiser than Mr. Baddie is. This is something that when you watch the film maybe in Persian speaking language, you can understand it more, because Mr. Baddie can't believe that guy. He thinks that I'm wiser than you and I can't accept these kinds of thing that you are saying. But we see as audiences that what Mr. Bagheri says is wiser than what maybe Mr. Baddie thinks. So I can't see any raised hands or any questions or issue. So Justin?
Yeah, one other thing that I sort of noticed this watch through is, and I'm not sure if you have anything, Zardosht, to speak about this, but I thought it was interesting that the three passengers that he picks up, they seem to progress in age as they move along. So we have a really young guy at first, is just sort of coming into his life. We have the second one is, still studying, but still has a pretty decently shaped idea of what his life's going to be. And then finally, we have this third Azerbaijani gentleman who, he's the first one that's older than the protagonist, I think, too, significantly. And, I wonder if just that progression, like structurally, is meant to speak to something about like how, how our relationship to life and death might progress as we age and as we retain more information and more experiences. I'm wondering if anyone else has that sort of.
It's a great point, actually. And I love these discussions because you raise some issues that sometimes I haven't catch up, I haven't caught. And so now I have seen this film maybe 10 times, but I didn't realize this, that the characters and also, the passengers, as you say, they are older and older. The first one is younger, the middle age, and you're right. It's a very great point. But this is very, very, very interesting point. But still I think that Kiarostami refers to that Azerbaijani guy. She says, okay, you are from Azerbaijan, I'm from Tehran, but I'm saying it's more true or maybe more wiser. But we see as the audiences when the film wrapped up, what Mr. Bagheri, the third character, the older character, said was very wise, and we love that, and also the name of the film comes from that, taste of cherry. And the taste of cherry actually saved my life, or taste of mulberries saved my life. It was a great point. Thank you, Justin. Thank you. I added to my thinking about this film. And we had another raised hand, I think I saw something. Okay, Grant, go ahead. You're muted. Okay.
Sorry, I was wondering if you could talk about like the lack of score throughout, just up until the very end. I feel like it actually lets you sit with the characters more than have something overtoning. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
So about the not having the score.
Yeah.
This is the way. Also, if I want to also refer to Farhadi's film, also Farhadi is influenced by Kiarostami. I can't say, but in most of his film, you don't have, also in the last film, A Hero, I don't know, you have seen the film or not, we don't have music, we don't have non-diegetic music in the film. It comes from Kiarostami's cinema, that Iranian filmmaker was very influenced by him. It gives us more maybe natural or maybe realistic idea about the film and about the characters, and it makes it more maybe documentary based. In the first scene in the film, when Mr. Baddie is in the square of north of Tehran, and he wants to pick some passengers, you see that there are some workers that they have migrated from different cities of Iran, and so some of them think that Mr. Baddie is gay. The couple, the man is gay, and he wants to find something. And this is some vagueness that Kiarostami put in the first part of the film and led us to be with this character. And he reveals step by step and in a very realistic way. So you should be patient and watch the film, and not just, because there is no music, non-diegetic music, just we have, sound design. It's a very great sound design from those parts of Tehran in this film. Okay. Any questions or thoughts? Angela, go ahead.
Hi, that's my wife. My daughter is Angela.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's, but I just realized who my person is. Yeah, I was wondering. You mentioned that he influenced Farhadi, which is so great because I'm such a fan. Who influenced Kiarostami, and what do you think were his own influences?
Kiarostami, he as a maybe filmmaker in the first maybe part of his filmmaking, he was under influence of neorealist cinema and some filmmakers like Ermanno Olmi. But as I said, he was also influenced by the Iranian poetic background. In some of the name of his films comes from the name of the poetries or poems in Iran. So he said he said himself that I was first under the influence of some neorealistic film like Fellini's, or not just Fellini's, maybe De Sica or Rossellini. But maybe in the second part, he was, he was a kind of filmmaker that the people or maybe other filmmakers were influenced by him. So yeah, I can say that maybe Italian neorealistic was the school that Kiarostami learned something from. Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Zardosht, I know that there were other films that we were not able to get to in terms of our selection of these four. So I was just wondering if you could share some additional selections of films that if everyone enjoyed these, we should continue to look for, or in case Kiarostami was new to anyone here. I know that you provided some titles, but any particular highlights that you think
By
after we've seen
Kiarostami,
this one we should keep watching?
by Kiarostami or by other filmmakers?
I remember in particular there was one Hungarian film that we couldn't find streaming that didn't fit in here. So
Was Turkish film, I think.
it was a Turkish, yes.
Yeah. It was a film, the only film, not the only, the first Turkish film that won the Cannes Film Festival is by Yeni. And the Turkish name of the film is Yol, Y-O-L. And one of my favorite films, Yılmaz Güney directed when he was in jail in Turkey. And when we came out, or maybe he fled from Turkey, he edited the film. So he wasn't at the scene or at the set actually by himself, but he directed the film, and it is a masterpiece. And also my favorite film by Kiarostami is the Where is the House, Home or something. It comes from actually Iranian. The name of the film comes from Iranian. Where is the Friend's House? And the Coker trilogy, if you have time to watch it, because the film was made in north part of Iran. Kiarostami first made this film, Where is the Friend's House? And after a deadly maybe earthquake in Iran that at least 50,000 people killed in that area, Kiarostami went there to find those characters, those children who were in these films. And he made two films about that, actually, the theme of life and death. And I love those films. The Coker trilogy, I really recommend to watch that film. And also Yol by Yılmaz Güney, All the Way, thank you for putting the link in the chat box, please. And also Anna says, appreciate this conversation because this wasn't an easy film to watch without the context you have provided. But yeah, this film by Kiarostami, I think, is maybe the end of his thinking about life and death in his film, because also in two films, Life and Nothing Else is also about the people who lost all they had in earthquake, and still life is going on that place. But it's a wrapping, I think, for those films about life and death. But yeah, it's not a very, it's not a easy film to watch actually. But if you just be patient and finish the film, I think it will be with you for many years. Also, I don't know, Amir Naderi another Iranian filmmaker who lives in New York, Amir Naderi, A-M-I-R, Naderi. And also he has made some films in the United States. Amir Naderi and Kiarostami was kind of colleagues, and when they were young, they used to work with together, and some parts of you can see some maybe similarities between their aesthetics. And so let me just find another Iranian filmmakers who live in the United States, and his film named A Runner or The Runner is a masterpiece that you can find some similarities between his cinema and Kiarostami's cinema, because both they belong to the new wave Iranian filmmaker after the revolution, after 1979 revolution. That's it. Yeah. If you have any question or something, I'm here. If not, that I think, Chris, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I want to just thank you, Zardosht,
You're welcome.
for leading us through these films. They have been, I guess the only thing that I just want to say in summary is a lot of the films that we've discussed and we've watched here have been so plot driven. And a lot of the films that you have selected have been beautifully impressionistic and poetic. And it was a beautiful change of pace and films that I was not aware of. So thank you so much for sharing these with us and for your insight and leading us through this series. And I hope that there will be an opportunity again to do another series with you and to explore some other great titles. Thank you so much for your insight and leading us through these films.
Thank you so much. And I'm really glad that I was here, and thank you for this opportunity. And it was actually, they were great discussions for me. As I said, for example, today, Justin brought an idea, or maybe William and Grant, that I haven't thought about. So I learned a lot from these discussions, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.